Hi, my name is Scott Nance. I'm so excited to moderate today's conversation with writer-director Isaiah Saxon. What did you think of The Legend of Ochi? Look, I just came in the last 5 minutes after watching the movie, earlier this week, and I was like, okay, here come the tears again. This movie feels like a throwback to like the likes of The Black Stallion, certainly E.T. the Extraterrestrial, a little bit of Gremlins in there. But this is your first feature film. Why this movie, and what inspired you?
I think what inspired me was just being a kid in the woods. I grew up in the Santa Cruz Mountains in the Redwood Forest, and there were all these like kind of weird hippies around, and they were telling me that there was Sasquatch in the woods, and at any moment I might stumble upon him, and that kind of like sense that magic is in the forest. So that's like the deep feeling, and then as I sat down to write it, I'm just thinking I wanted to make a movie about a kid and an animal, and what that animal would do to that kid in a relationship, and I was like, well, I want them to try to communicate. And then I realized, oh, that's what I'm really writing about, is like nonverbal communication. It's music and dance and pictures. Like, this is why I'm attracted to art, is nonverbal communication. So then I realized I'm really writing about that, and just everything comes from there. Yeah.
Okay, full disclosure, I'm a big, long-time Star Trek fan. And when you go back to those earlier episodes, with Captain Kirk and everything, there are a couple episodes in there where he sees something, they see something doesn't look familiar, they fear it, and then they communicate and they understand it, and it changes the game. That's kind of what's happening here. But there is a mythical coming-of-age fantasy that is grounded in reality approach that you took to this. So, what were the challenges to strike the right balance between something that was mythical and something that was grounded in reality?
Yeah, I guess I had to just, it was harder to ground things in reality than it was to create fantasy. I feel like I knew the fantasy would be there. Just that's my normal handwriting. That's what I've been doing in short films and music videos. It's like really surreal, really phantasmagorical, psychedelic stuff. So this was like an attempt to, okay, I need to be believable, and I wanted, with the design of like the creatures and the world and all of this stuff, really the goal is this is something that a kid could enter into and actually think, maybe this is a real animal I haven't seen the BBC nature special on yet. Maybe this island, I didn't learn about it in geography class yet, but that was guiding all of these components of the world that might also seem like, people might describe it as a mythical creature, and I'm like, no, it's an animal. It's a species. It's an undiscovered primate. That was always where I came from, the angle I was coming from. Yeah.
So when it came to the design of the Ochi, how did that look evolve before you settled on the look that you chose for the movie?
There was some dramatic evolution right in the beginning, where I think the first idea I had for what things looked like was it was a giant hairy oaf type creature, just for like a day. And then once I realized it was a primate, then I realized, oh, it's got to fit in her backpack. And then it was really quickly the reference of the Chinese snub-nosed golden monkey, this wonderful endangered primate in the remote regions of China, was the visual inspiration. And then also various lemurs and tarsiers. And I did some early sketches of that, and that's exactly what this is. So that came pretty quickly, and then from there, we had 3.5 years of development before I was ever greenlit. So I was taking any money I had and giving it to John Nolan Studios in London to start prototyping these creatures. So we were really quickly in physical form with a puppet as soon as we could. Yeah.
Why take the practical approach of using puppets and puppeteers to operate them versus going with the CGI, going with the visual effects, the heavy visual effects?
Yeah, I have made fully CG animated short work, and like I know the software, and I love making stuff in 3D. But this is a live action film, so it should have live action everything. There was never a debate about which way to go for this. And I think puppetry is just like this ancient art form that is so, our brains are so forgiving and easy. It's so easy to accept it. Like we've been making shadows on the cave wall that feel alive for millennia.
Yeah.
And just as soon as the human hand is giving life to something, it's so easy to just believe it. And all the failure, like the failure space of puppetry, the parts that are wanky and janky and wiggly, they all just add charm and aliveness too. Like what we discovered on the first day of testing the prototype that had no fur and no animatronic face, it was just a naked puppet, kind of ugly, was that because it's a baby, a baby primate like doesn't know how to move its body perfectly. There's a little bit of imperfection and wiggles in it as it's finding its footing. And when you have 5 people puppeting a creature like this with rods that have to be a few feet long, the same imperfection is there. And we were like, this is the ultimate happy accident, because look at it, it looks like a baby trying to move its body, but it's just, that's as good as the puppeteers can be.
The thing is like when, I'm gonna throw back again, this time to like the Empire Strikes Back. Because when you're watching Mark Hamill interact with Yoda, a puppet, the great thing that brings Yoda alive is Mark Hamill's commitment to Yoda as a living person, so to speak.
Yeah.
And Helena Zengel does exactly that with the baby Ochi. How was it for her working with the puppet baby Ochi, and what made Helena perfect for the role in the first place?
Yeah, so usually a film like this would see like 1,000 kids, over videotaped, auditions. But I saw a film called System Crasher. She was in when she was 9 years old, and in Germany, she won the German Academy Award for Best Actress. And it's just, it's insane. She is a force of nature and an incredible actor at her age. So we offered her the film without seeing anyone else, and the same week we cast Willem and Emily and Finn. We cast everyone in 1 week. It was wild. When we got there in Romania, I just realized like she has the spirit of Yuri. She ended up in the week before shooting, as we were settling into this little village way out in the mountains. One of the Romanian street dogs was hit by a car, and the car went off, and the dog was bleeding out on the ground, and she picked it up, put it on her shoulders, carried it back to our cabin, and then ended up adopting it and took it back to Berlin with her after the shoot. And she had like blood all over her face. It was like, you have this spirit, but she's also personality-wise nothing like the character. Like, she's, in the film she's an introverted, quiet, can't express herself, bottled up, and like the moment before I say action, she's just teasing me, talking a mile a minute, super outgoing, and then I had to say action like a animal call to be like, go. And then in terms of how it was having the puppet there and how it benefited her, it was everything. Like a lot of the movie, the puppet's actually on her shoulder, so we have like a remote controlled backpack version of the puppet that doesn't require puppeteers. And then she's just, cuddling it in between takes and talking to it, and the puppeteers were really interested in like staying in character between takes too, so not just letting it go dead, but keeping it alive when it was around her. And yeah, as she says, like she really did love it. It felt like an animal series.
I gotta say that, how did you decide on shooting in like the Romanian countryside? Like why that area? Did you look at other areas?
Early on it was just, okay, I want to set this film in the wilderness, a mysterious wilderness. Where are you going to do that? You're not going to do it in the Rockies or the Sierra Nevada or even the Alps. You're going to go as far east as you can to the Carpathian Mountains, where in this area, Transylvania, as soon as you leave the cities, there's horse-drawn carriages everywhere. There's people scything their fields by hand and building haystacks, and It's a time machine, and so it's also where the most wolves and bears and lynx and primeval uncut forest are in all of Europe. So it was just kind of like, it was undeniable that's where it had to be, and I became intoxicated with researching the place, and we traveled there very early, with some development money before we were greenlit, and scouted all the locations, searched the whole country for what you see.
And it looks like something out of Lord of the Rings, really. It's perfect. I mean, it's real.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly what it is. I mean, we didn't really dress up Romania. We mostly, if we invented anything, it's in the end where the rivers and caves and Ochi habitat that you see in the third act there were no suitable locations for that. So that's kind of all 3D environments.
While I was watching the film, one of the things that really moved me, in addition to obviously the story, is the music. The music is beautiful, the recurring themes, the motifs. How did you really bring that to the fore with your composer? And am I right that you actually maybe considered doing this as a musical in the very early stages?
Not a movie musical like you would expect, but the first idea that I started talking to Dave Longstreth of Dirty Projectors, who's our composer here, he was the first person I brought onto the project when it was just a twinkle in my eye, and I was like, I have kind of an idea for a movie, but I know that I want it to be a diegetic musical, where basically music is being produced in the film, integrated into scenes in a grounded way. And I think that's still here. There's a lot of that still in the movie. People are singing to the radio and playing the flute. Humans and animals are singing together. But as the conversations evolved, we started talking more about also the score component, which would be this kind of grand symphonic modernist overscore, like a Fantasia feeling, where it's like the power of pictures and music are going to carry the load here. And it's not going to be an underscore that's just subliminal. It's going to be on top. And he worked for about 3 years on the score too. It's been like, I think Dave more than anyone else has like really authored a lot of this work. So.
Also, the cinematography and the production design is also something that really informed the approach to the film and striking the right balance between fantasy and reality. You talk about working with your production designer and your cinematographers.
Yeah, so I brought on Evan Prasovsky, my favorite cinematographer of my generation. He had done the first Grimes video where they're doing motorbikes, and shot this incredible short film called Mobius that attracted me to him. And we started just comparing, sharing our love of images and what the images would be, and we quickly found we just had the exact same taste. So we were looking at Black Stallion, like you mentioned, There Will Be Blood, Paris, Texas, movies that were shot on film in the 70s and 80s, and that had a lot of natural light, allowed things to go dark, allowed silhouette to appear. And then as I brought on my production designer, Jason Kisvarde, he had just done Everything Everywhere All at Once. He's a friend of mine, and he really took on the let's make the supermarket feel like something truly post-Soviet commercialism, and all the cars. We both just kinked out about having the weirdest cars, yeah, it was. I had so much concept art, designing the world before I even came to Jason, but I had no idea how to do any of it. So he really just made it all happen.
So, watching the film, I just felt like, we need more movies like this that talk about love and compassion and, understanding, communication, and, it's, what do you hope people take away from the film?
You said it, man. Yeah, I guess there's a sense of this film is aligned with the sort of moral superiority of children and animals and nature over adults. And I think as adults grow, we build a model of the world based on all the stories we've seen and all the experiences we had, and it's going to be really flawed. But if we're rigid about that model, than young people who are actually still building their model, and they're, sometimes seeing things more clearly. They're figuring things out for themselves. If we're rigid with that, everyone's going to be miserable, and we really need to step aside, be humble, and respect children to assert their perspective of, and that's our only hope. So.
Well, our only hope for a movie like this to thrive is for you to spread the word. So now that you've seen the film, please go on social media. If you want to go on TikTok, Facebook, if you're still using X, knock yourself out. But please.
I'm actually only on X.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
On TikTok.
Ooh.
But please spread the word about The Legend of Ochi and Isaiah Saxon. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here at the Grove today, AMC Theaters.
Thank you.
Congratulations.